Shalom saudara, kita akan bahas tema.
Today, let's look at the characteristics of God's providence of redemption.
Kita akan pelajaran kali ini
We're going to review some of the studies we've done in the past.
yaitu penyelamatan kita dibagi menurut waktunya.
We learned that
Yaitu ada penyelamatan di masa
God's work
lampau,
of salvation is divided into periods.
dan penyelamatan
His work in the past, present, and future.
Kita akan review.
So let's review through
mengekspresikan tiga
one
waktu
verse
sekaligus.
that expresses all three time periods, which is Hebrews chapter 10, verse
Sebab
14.
oleh satu korban saja ia telah menyempurnakan untuk selama-lamanya mereka yang ia kuduskan.
Hebrews
Di sini
10:14
satu korban
says,
merujuk pada siapa?
"For by one offering he has perfected for all time those who are afflicted." And that one offering is speaking about the redemptive offering of Jesus Christ. The NIV reads, "For by one sacrifice he has made perfect forever those who are being made holy."
Forever those who are being made holy. Yaitu
So
apa
what
yang
was done?
dilakukan,
He has
ia telah
made perfect.
menyempurnakan.
And it's in the past
Kalimatnya
tense.
selesai.
So through his death on the cross, we have already
Telah
been
menjadi
made
seperti
perfect.
apa? Telah menjadi sempurna.
Number
Lalu,
2, until when?
kapan?
Forever,
Untuk selama-lamanya.
for all
Untuk
time.
selama-lamanya. Forever.
And this
Ekspresi
expression
yang
refers
menampakkan
to
masa depan.
the future. And this is the
Ini
same
sama dengan
as
firman
the
di
message that is written in 2 Timothy
Timotius
chapter 4 verse 18. 2 Timothy 4:18 says that the Lord will rescue me
Kemudian tentang siapa?
from every deed and will bring me safely to his heavenly kingdom to be with him, to be the glory forever and ever.
Mereka yang ia
Number
kuduskan.
3, who?
Bentuknya pasif masa
Those who are being made
Those
holy.
who are being made holy. Yaitu mereka
And they
yang
are being
sedang
made
dikuduskan,
holy
mereka
now.
yang sedang
So it is
dikuduskan.
in the continuing tense.
Sedang
They
berada
are in the
dalam
process of
proses
being made
dikuduskan
holy.
secara terus-menerus. Sama seperti firman di Filipi 2 ayat
If you look
12,
at Philippians
"Tetaplah
2
kerjakan
verse 12,
keselamatanmu dengan takut dan
it says
gentar."
here that you must
Oleh
work
karena
out your
itu,
salvation with
apa yang
fear
harus
and
kita
trembling.
lakukan, saudara-saudara?
So it's a continuing
Tentang apa yang telah kita
process.
dengar, kita harus berhati-hati supaya kita tidak,
So we need to be careful.
supaya kita jangan hanyut di bawah arus.
We need to be
Yang
careful
dikatakan di Ibrani 2 ayat 1 dan 3.
so that not everything things don't get swept away. Hebrews 2 verses 1 to 3.
Menyia-nyiakan keselamatan yang sebesar itu.
You have received great
Kita harus memiliki
salvation,
sikap yang lebih teliti memperhatikan.
but you need to pay
Ini juga salah
attention.
satu alasan untuk belajar.
And this is something that we need to focus on.
Hari ini
Today we
kita
will
akan
look at
mempelajari tentang ekspresi-ekspresi di Alkitab yang
the expression.
memperhatikan sifat dari penyelenggaraan penebusan Allah.
We will look at the
Dari
expression
penyelenggaraan penebusan Allah.
God's administration of
Kita akan
redemption.
mempelajari tentang ekspresi-ekspresi Alkitab yang memperlihatkan.
So we will look at the characteristics of God's providence of redemption.
Ada ekspresi yang
And if you look at the history of redemption series, it speaks often, especially the title, about the providence of redemption, or from the perspective of redemption. So what is this history of redemption? If you look at the word redemption in the history of redemption, in Greek it's apolitirosis. And it refers to a payment made in order to free a servant. During the Roman rule, there was slavery, and many Christians were made free from their slavery. But during that time when they heard the word redemption, it was a word that gave them freedom and joy and great emotion.
Bagaimana rasanya? Kalau kita di zaman sekarang kurang begitu merasakan artinya kan? Tapi bagi orang-orang
The word redemption doesn't bring us too much emotion today, but the people at that time felt great joy and freedom and emotion when they heard redemption. Redemption refers to salvation that comes with the payment of a price. Now let's look at the word history. We speak about redemptive history. What is history? So history is a story of the past. And the word history is a combination, they say, of his and story. His meaning God's story. So God, the story of how God saved all mankind. And history comes from the Latin word meaning to research the truth or in search of the truth. And it comes from the word histor. Histor means witness or testimony or a person who reveals the truth. You can also refer to Luke 1, verses 1 and 2. Big number 2, let's look at the administration of redemption. Administration of redemption. If you look at administration, administration refers to management, rule, plan, mystery, or profound meaning. Ephesians 1:9. And so, simply put, what is the providence of redemptive history? It refers to God's profound will, His great will to save all mankind. It also refers to God's plan, His mysteries, His rule over the world. And so what does it mean to say we are looking at something from the perspective of the administration of redemptive history? It means that we're looking at redemptive history from the perspective of God's administration. So God rules over history for mankind. And this kind of perspective is like looking down from the peak of a mountain. It is also like looking at the backbone of a specific structure or looking at the spine of the body. For instance, if you look at the book of Genesis or the Genesis genealogies from the perspective of God's redemptive work, which perspective is that? It means that you are not just looking at the passage of the generations. You are looking at the whole genealogy from God's providence, from the perspective of God's providence. The Bible connects each and every event with one theme. For instance, when you are sewing or when you are working on tapestry, everything looks separated, but at the end you see that all the threads and needlework are connected. Likewise, the Bible introduces many ages, many places, events, and stories. But all these events and the people in these events are connected through one unified theme. And so today we're going to look at certain expressions and words that speak about God's providence and God's administration of redemption. Number one, let's look at God's administration in faith. If you look at 1 Timothy 1:4, 1 Timothy 1:4, it says the following. It says here, the administration of God which is by faith. The administration of God which is by faith.
administration of God which is by faith.
Point number 1.
Poin satu kecil.
So the one who is administrating is God himself. The word administration in Greek is oikonomia, and is a combination of the word oiko, meaning house, and nomia, means to divide or to manage. So it means that God is the one who is managing the whole universe. 1 Corinthians 9:17. 1 Corinthians 9:17.
Tugas penyelenggaraan yang ditanggungan kepadaku.
Says here,
KJV dikatakan dispensation. Di sini
I have a stewardship entrusted to me.
Bahasa Yunani adalah satu kata
And stewardship is also oikonomia.
penyelenggaraan. Dikatakan bahwa
So the Apostle Paul has been given stewardship as an apostle to evangelize to others. So likewise, the concept of stewardship is also part of God's administration. So duties, stewardship, the task to evangelize, and managing all things in this world are also part of administration. Small number 2. God's administration can be understood only through faith. So God is the one who administers, and you can understand it only through faith. What are the characteristics of this administration? God's administration is in faith. And in Greek is en, means inside, or on top of, or with. So God's administration is not achieved through doctrine or teachings or some sort of religious theories. God's administration works along with faith. It can be understood only with faith, and it can be fulfilled only with faith. So the experiences in this world, knowledge, logic, will not help you understand God's administration, because God's administration is in faith.
Kenapa? Karena penyelenggaraan Allah terdapat di dalam iman.
Jesus is without sin, and yet he died on the cross where sinners die. And without faith, this is not understandable. It looks foolish. 1 Corinthians 1:18.
Itu hanya terlihat bodoh kan saudara, seperti yang dikatakan 1 Korintus 1 ayat 18.
And because the path of this administration goes against the path of this world, you can understand it only by faith. And God's administration is revealed only to those who have faith. If you look at 1 Thessalonians 2:13, it says here that you have received the word of God which you have heard from us. You accept it not as the word of men, but for what it really is, the word of God, which also performs its work in you who believe. And so the fulfillment of the administration of redemption is also achieved only by faith. That's why it is called the administration of God in faith. Second characteristic is that this administration is the administration of grace. If you look at Ephesians 3:2, it says here, if indeed you have heard of the stewardship of God's grace which was given to me for you. If you look at verse 1, you refers to the Gentiles who do not believe in God. So this speaks of God's plan to save even the Gentiles who do not know God. And so there is grace at the center of God's administration. So as we learn about the grace of God's redemption, we come to understand God's unlimited love. And we can't help but bend our knees in worship. If you look at Ephesians 3:8, it says here, "To me, the very least of all saints, this grace was given to preach to the Gentiles the unfathomable riches of Christ." And the expression here, unfathomable, anexikiniastos, anexikiniastos in Greek. And it means something that you cannot trace, you cannot track, you cannot measure.
Lalu di sini kata ku yang paling hina di antara segala orang kudus. Bahasa Yunani satu kata.
And here it speaks about him who is the least of all. And the least here is elakistetoros, which means the smallest, the least.
Jadi artinya lebih hina lagi. Jadi ibaratnya membandingkan ujung alam semesta dengan.
So it is like measuring the whole universe with an atom. So Paul says that the administration of Jesus Christ, administration of God, is the administration of grace. And when he came to understand this mystery of Christ, he says it's all by grace. And he became a steward of Christ all by the grace of God. Ephesians 3 verses 2 to 3. And it says here that it is by the administration of grace that he came to know the mysteries of God's revelations. And you can also look at 1 Corinthians 15 verse 10. Number 2, he says he became a steward of the gospel all by the grace of God. Ephesians 3:7. So number 1, he came to understand the mysteries of Jesus Christ all by the grace of God. And number 2, he became a steward for the gospel all by the grace of God.
Rahasia, dia mengenal rahasia Allah, itu adalah kasih karunia Allah, penyelenggaraan kasih karunia Allah. Kemudian sekarang dia menjadi pelayan Allah, itu sepenuhnya menurut pemberian kasih karunia Allah atau karena kasih karunia Allah. Efesus 3 ayat 7, Efesus 3 ayat 7. Bahkan orang-orang kafir pun diselamatkan. Ini adalah kasih karunia Allah. Nah, Efesus 3:6 yaitu bahwa
he says the Gentiles became fellow partakers of the promise in Christ Jesus through the gospel. And among the 7 covenants that God made with Abraham, the 5th covenant was the covenant of circumcision. Any child, male child, 8 days old must be circumcised, and all males among the people must be circumcised, both those born in the household of Abraham and those bought with money. And so this shows us that in the future, all people of all nations will become people of God. Genesis 22:18. Genesis 22:18 says the following. It says here, "In your seed, all nations of the earth shall be blessed because you have obeyed my voice." So the Apostle Paul was saying that through God's message to Abraham,
penyelenggaraan Allah itu
God's message to Abraham will be achieved through Jesus Christ.
Itu kasih karunia Allah. Kita akan bahas sampai di sini dan
We will continue our study
kita akan bahas lagi
in our
di
next
pelajaran berikutnya.
study.
Tuhan
Thank you.
memberkati.